Okay, sweet. All right, we're going live on YouTube as well. Welcome everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know if you're here. Put something in the chat. Let me know how you're doing. This is gonna be a good video. We got a lot of people interested in this one today. So today what we're talking about is benzodiazepine and psych med withdrawal symptoms. Very important area. A lot of people have a lot of a lot of challenges with this. It's very severe condition that is not good. So yeah, let's jump into it. As far as what we're going to cover today is just from my general experience with basically with vagus nerve stimulation, technology, etc., and working with people with benzodiazepine specific types of withdrawal issues, damage, psych med damage, really the full meal deal. There are a lot of things to consider when you're dealing with how does the vagus nerve react when you stimulate it in a case where there's benzodiazepine withdrawal symptoms. So we're going to cover, to answer that question, is vagus nerve stimulation in a case of benzodiazepine damage a good thing or is it a bad thing? Should we do it? Should we not do it? This is the question that we're going to go into. So generally speaking, overview, so you guys have some familiarity with what I know about benzodiazepine withdrawal, is that benzodiazepines specifically work on a GABA receptor system in your brain. Trying to quit them too quickly, trying to quit benzodiazepines, tapering too quickly can cause some severe and potentially fatal side effects. So people have to be very careful about benzodiazepines. For instance, I just had a call with a client just earlier today, just probably about an hour ago. Just a monthly check-in like I usually do with clients. She's doing VNS, and she said, gosh, if I would have known then what I know now about benzodiazepines, I never would have taken them. Maybe I would have taken them for 3 days, but honestly, given she's having to micro taper off of it for months at a time just to get off of a benzo, and if she takes up too quickly, she can have extreme physical side effects from it. So it's like, really, is it worth it? I don't know. I don't know how that's legal to prescribe benzodiazepines still, given the life-altering effects that it can have on people. So that's just not good. And then, there's certainly a wide range of what psych meds mean in particular. If people are watching and you want to type in, hey, I have a question about, hey, I have a question about this kind of psych med. If you want to because again, I could talk day in and day out, but what if I don't mention the exact Cymbalta that you took? Could this help with that? Again, this is a live chat. I'm here right now. Today's date is June 16th, Friday. It's 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, please feel free to drop a question. If you have any specific questions, if you have any specific things you want to know about as I'm going through this, don't hesitate to ask a question, okay? I want to make sure that I can at least answer questions that are here. So when you taper off of these benzos, you get bad side effects. You get all kinds of potential for harm. So how does the vagus nerve come into this? Well, generally speaking, what I like to tell people who are in a psych med damage situation, obviously it's important to hear their story, hear what the symptoms are, what are the common problems that they're experiencing. Typically you see things like their brain feels like jelly. They have internal vibrations, internal trembling. They have internal anxiety attacks. Basically, they just don't feel good. They don't feel comfortable in the body. They don't feel pleasure. They don't even feel emotions. These are some of the side effects that can happen from neurological damage induced by a neurotransmitter modulator like a SSRI or an NSRI or a benzodiazepine or a anticholinergic, or there's so many drugs, right? I'm not going to go list all of them, but if you mess up your brain chemistry, the side effects can be substantial, significant, and long-lasting, and very difficult to reverse. You can spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of treatment and trying to recover, and sometimes you get results. Oftentimes, it's really difficult. So I'm fortunate in that I got the opportunity for a number of years to work in a lab that did ultrasound stimulation of the human brain through a company called Berkeley Ultrasound, which I'm the CEO of still. You can go look at my website, berkeleyultrasound.com. you can see some of the work we're currently involved in terms of for research capacity. And you can read about my, I've given hours and hours of conversations and talks throughout the last 12 years. I may look young, but I'm not 18, just so you guys know. I'm in my 30s. You can see the well-worn lines in my forehead. And so anyway, I've been around for a while, but generally speaking, my background is in ultrasound stimulation of the human nervous system to treat like severe major depressive disorder, depressive disorders that are not treatable by medications that have been tried and have failed. So we did a lot of work treating neurological disorders with ultrasound. So ultrasound's pretty incredible, what it can do, what it can touch, how it can activate different regions of your brain. And that work was started about 12 years ago, like I said. And at some point it shifted into just literally by accident. Hey, what if we stimulated the vagus nerve? Okay, well, let's look at that. Well, when we stimulated the vagus nerve, we could make people feel really like a difference, like a substantial autonomic shift in their body almost immediately. And that was notable. And it was faster on the vagus nerve than what we would see in the brain. Don't get me wrong. Brain stimulation, if done right with ultrasound, can have some substantial and immediate and noticeable effects, bar none, right? That there's the reason why some of the companies that I've advised and been part of are raising in Silicon Valley $100,000 plus dollars. No, sorry, not 100,000, $100 million in funding to launch products and to get this in the mass market. But that's going to take 5 to 10 years. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to hold out for that. Shut up, Sterling. I don't care. I'm waiting for the big one. I'm like, okay, well, you're going to be waiting for probably like about 7 years or so. Yeah. So I wouldn't hold your breath on that. But in the meantime, what you can do today is you can stimulate your vagus nerve with ultrasound right on the neck, right on the spleen, right on the liver, right on the pancreas, right on the sacrum, right on the sternum, and the stomach. There's lots of places you can stimulate the vagus nerve throughout your body with ultrasound, which you can't do with electrical stimulation. So don't even try. You're just not going to get in there with electrical stimulation. So you'll see typically people get results with electrical stimulation, but they don't get good long-term results unless they're constantly ramping up and increasing stimulation intensity or time. Long-term electrical stimulation typically requires nearly 24/7, I'm talking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, stimulation to maintain constant vagus nerve activation. So if you sign up for the electrical path, just know that the only people who get the long-term results, we're talking 5 years. These devices are not widely used electrically in any large capacity. So you are signing up yourself up to be kind of a guinea pig of like, oh, what could happen? What could this, what's this going to look like? So those are options, but electrical stimulation, certainly is an option. It's not my preference. I don't do electrical stimulation of my vagus nerve. I do ultrasound stimulation of my vagus nerve. So anyway, cool. Well, I'm happy to take questions, you guys. I know some people are watching that asked me to do this video. I wanted to do this video specifically to address questions of, benzo withdrawal. So, please, if you could, I'm here. Here's what I'll do. I'll start rattling off some numbers because I think people want to know what's your success rate and all this kind of stuff. And I don't typically believe that, numbers are not persuasive. Numbers don't move the dial. What really counts are stories of people that have actually done this. If I told you out of 100 people, we had a 98% success rate with VNS, like that's just, good, cool. You can fudge numbers, but you can't fudge a real person talking to the camera and saying, here's what happened to me. Here's what my experience was. And so I think all those watching have probably seen the interview I did with Marcy. You can see what that particularly looked like. So, that's a very, 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 very recent case of somebody who's had psych damage. So, I think that's an important thing to do. Cool. Okay, so I do have a comment here from Matt. Thank you so much. Matt wrote, I used an electrical stimulation on my gut for 5 minutes 2 weeks ago, and I've had nothing but issues since. Sorry to hear that. Any thoughts on what happened there? It was a TENS device. It's hard to say like what specifically happened. So the thing is with electrical stimulation is, especially in the gut region, the first thing that you're stimulating is all sympathetic nerves. So that's gonna, your body is built in terms of like layers of an onion. So wrapping around all of your skin is your sympathetic pain receptor system. So if you're running electrical stimulation, the path of least resistance from one electrode to the other is right at the skin level. So you're running electrical current right across all of that. So you're much more likely to be stimulating just purely sympathetic nerves and irritating them. Like you're signaling to your body, like there's pain and there's a potential problem happening right here, right now. And so my guess would be that with that TENS device is that it was just kind of activating the wrong receptors, the wrong nerves, and you basically just put some of those nerves into a sympathetic state. With something like ultrasound, the entry window is very minor, but the penetration depth is massive. And all those vagus nerve receptors are down, 2 to 3 to 4 inches below the skin. Electrical stimulation is a huge surface area on the skin and almost no penetration below the surface of the skin where the vagus nerve actually is. So that's why with electrical stimulation, it's like you gotta run it from like the front to the back of your body, at least to try and get some penetration through. If you're gonna do on the neck, you gotta go from here to here. And again, but you are stimulating everything and anything in between the two, all around the whole neck. And so that can be like, just not good. If you put electrodes on your neck, it's going to activate those muscles. Whereas ultrasound will not activate any neurons that fire muscles in your head or neck. So you can successfully implement, stimulating with ultrasound of the vagus nerve without these kinds of problems. So great question. Definitely great question. Charlene, you have a great question here too on Facebook. What if someone is prescribed a benzo for anxiety? Can they do VNS instead of popping the pill at the moment of anxiety? Yeah, actually, I had a client call this morning with TK, and I probably shouldn't give away names, but forget that. I had a call with someone that's a client, and they spoke about, having just a moment where there was real anxiety, and they were able to stimulate with ultrasound on their neck, on the vagus nerve. And they're like, really, like it was just an amazing, like almost instantaneous reduction in the anxiety. So yeah, definitely. I think that's why you guys are taking these benzos, is because you're like, there's nothing else that helps with the anxiety. And so I get it. Like you're offered this one type of option. It's a scary situation. You want answers, you want support, you want help. And if a doctor's like, hey, this will help you, this will fix the problems, then who are you to say no to that, right? So yeah, definitely if it's in the case of a benzo, potentially for anxiety, I would say don't do it. Don't get on it. Don't get on benzodiazepines, given all the stuff that I've had to deal with clients. Now, I don't say that to deal with it. Like I'm not dealing with as much, I'm dealing with a fraction of anything that they're actually going through. But in terms of working them through and supporting them through that journey of post complete taper side effects, which are lasting and can be really bad, is that there are a number of things you have to keep into account and you have to deal with really properly. So yeah, I would say do VNS instead of popping that pill. And you can do it literally at the moment of anxiety. You don't have to be locked into these stupid ass pills, which just are not fun. It's just not fun. So yeah, it's not me that's dealing with it. They're the ones who are dealing with the real severe stuff. I'm just like, I'm there to help, right? As much as I can. What is going Cool. So Matt had a follow-up question. Will using the VNS device help get people off psych meds faster? In my experience, yes. And it will absolutely help people like not have the high degree of risk of tapering off too fast. So if you are in a taper and it's a very particular taper, you definitely want to have your vagus nerve be part of that journey with you rather than not. So if you know that your vagus nerve is compromised, which it probably is very compromised during a taper. If you've had damage from psych meds, it's going, look, I mean, it's not that hard, you know. If you look at the vagus nerve controls your sense of balance. It controls blood pressure. It controls heart rate. It controls digestion. It controls all kinds of things, right? So you typically see with benzodiazepine or psych med damage that the neurological signals that regulate that stuff is like totally broken. It's just left in tatters. So it's really, it's very dangerous to play around with those. But it's clear based on the symptoms that the vagus nerve is affected. So having your vagus nerve active during that, you want to bring your vagus nerve online as soon as possible. Look, you guys, your vagus nerve is super critical for every aspect of your life. There's never, if somebody, I think I put a hypothetical, like if I had the option, you know, it's like so risky to even put this out there, but if I had the option, which nobody ever does, this is just a hypothetical. If I had the option to either be quadriplegic, to be paralyzed from the neck down, or to have my vagus nerve cut in my neck, both sides, but I could still walk around, I would, hands down from what I know, always choose to be quadriplegic versus having my vagus nerve cut. Now think about how serious of an implication that is. I would rather lose access to using my hands and my arms and my legs. I would rather lose that than have my vagus nerve cut. That's how, in my mind, as someone who's helped over 650 specific independent clients and have advised nearly probably now 4,000 people worldwide in their vagus nerve, and I run a Facebook group with 23,000 plus members today. As of today's video, it grows exponentially all the time. Is that what I know is that I would hands down never, ever want anything to come of my vagus nerve ever at all. No surgeries, no cuts, no drugs that affected my vagus nerve. I would rather be quadriplegic. That is how absolutely essential your vagus nerve is. Here's what happens, and I have had clients who have had their vagus nerve accidentally cut right in their neck because of a thyroid removal accident. Did you know that when they're doing a thyroid removal from thyroid cancer, that your vagus nerve runs right up and down in your thyroid? And if they're not very careful, they can accidentally slip and cut your vagus nerve right through. Guess what happens when that happens to people? And this may answer some questions from Matt to give him, to answer his next question, which I'll get to specifically. Guess what they experience? Anhedonia, zero ability to feel pleasure, no emotions, derealization and depersonalization, gastroparesis, reflux. Literally the reflux feeling in their throat gets so bad. Sometimes they lose the ability to swallow. It's crazy. Their voice is absolutely affected. It's like they have a Bell's palsy in their entire throat because that's your vagus nerve. It's your vagus nerve. I don't know why doctors are so reticent to just be like, it's your god dang vagus nerve that is causing all of these big issues. It's not your 11th glossopharyngeal nerve, which controls like the muscles in your tongue. Would I be inconvenienced if my glossopharyngeal nerve that controls the muscles in my tongue was affected? Yeah, but that's just here in my mouth. If my vagus nerve gets affected, I lose function all the way down. You develop, as a man, erectile dysfunction. As a woman, hormone imbalances, thyroid issues, heart palpitations, heart congestive failure, reflux. The list is endless. Yes, if like cranial nerve number 11 or 9 or 10, don't touch my 10th nerve. Hands the F off of my 10th cranial nerve. Get your hands off of my vagus. I will protect it with my life. So anybody who's like, I don't know, man. I mean, that glossopharyngeal nerve, that must be pretty darn important so I can move my tongue, which I agree. It's important, but given the option, you would definitely let your glossopharyngeal nerve take a second seat to fixing the vagus nerve. For sure. So vagus nerve is really important. And so, like I said, to get to Matt's question here, also we'll using VNS, and also keep the questions coming, folks, right? I'm doing this for your ears, for you, so that I can answer your questions specifically. So I definitely would absolutely recommend that you post some questions, right? As soon as the questions dry up, I'll, I don't know. My wife's coming home soon, so I'm just going to go put some rose petals all over the couch, and who knows? We'll see. So I'm happy to hop off of here anytime. But so yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. I'm doing this for the benefit of the the people that you know who you are. So Matt asked, also will using VNS help bring back emotions, feelings, motivation, and give us less fatigue? Yeah, if you look at the concurrent testimonials and case studies from VNS, it's absolutely hands down clear that vagus nerve stimulation restores emotional health. Stimulating the vagus nerve will restore your emotions that percolate up to your body. Generally speaking, it's well known now that emotions start in your gut, and those emotions send electrical signals up your vagus nerve into your brain. So if you have no emotions, if you have depersonalization and derealization, it's a clear cut, like right down to the wire, that something's wrong with your vagus nerve. No, it's not your tongue, your 11th cranial nerve. You guys fact check me in real time. Am I getting this right? Is your 9th nerve your accessory nerve, which regulates the muscles in your neck? If I cut the accessory nerve in your neck, your head would slink down and you couldn't pick up your head. That would suck, arguably so. If I cut one of any of the cranial nerves, this is bomb diffusal 101. If I cut the red wire, something's going to happen. If I cut the green wire, something's going to happen. There's 3 cranial nerves that are all in that same region of your vagus nerve. The 9th, the 10th, which is the vagus nerve, and the 11th. The glossopharyngeal, the 11th, regulates mouth, tongue movements, some of those muscles. If I cut that on one side, or I disabled it to some degree, you'd have tongue issues. Some people have that. Some people get Bell's palsy with their face and that kind of thing for a number of reasons. We won't go into that, but they have issues there. Then your 9th nerve, the 9th cranial nerve, which controls your muscles in your neck, which allows you to turn your head up and down, fine motor control. If that nerve got irritated or cut, you would develop like a head droop or neck pain, or when you moved your head left and right, you might feel a crunching because it's not properly gliding your head in coordination around. That could be a neck issue. You typically see a lot of these things coordinating with each other. Why is it that when a doctor puts a tongue depressor on your tongue, he looks in the back of your throat and he says, has you go, because he's looking at the muscles that the vagus nerve controls in the very back of your throat. If your uvula doesn't rise up equally, the doctor is looking at you and saying, okay, something's wrong with their autonomic, either their cranial nerve in their neck or their autonomic system. Needs to be explored further, because that's a vagus nerve problem. If your pupils don't dilate, that's an autonomic parasympathetic issue. There's lots of things to look at here, but the doctor's not going to say like, oh yeah, I think your vagus nerve is having an issue. Some do. I've been pleasantly surprised to find some doctors at Stanford, for instance, at the Stanford Medical Clinic, we are now diagnosing clients now with, okay, you have clear-cut vagus nerve issues. We need to treat that specifically. So that's really, really important to look at. Okay, cool. But yes, if you mess up your vagus nerve, you're really in trouble, definitely. Matt asked so he said, I mentioned the spleen, which is a very anti-inflammatory location in your body. So your spleen is on your left side of your body. It's what regulates your macrophages, your T cells, your TNF alpha levels. If you know anything about inflammation and interleukins and TNF alpha, you'll know that having elevated levels of TNF alpha can cause your entire body to get really, really inflamed. And that's not good. That causes pathogenesis with rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, can cause depression. They're even considering like Alzheimer's to be a fundamental byproduct of inflammation in the body, in the brain. And that's caused by that runaway inflammation in the body. So your spleen is on the left side under your rib cage. You know, you can go look at that up later. It's ribs number 9, 10, and 11, but that's probably not going to mean much to you. You can actually count your ribs up to that area. A picture's worth 1,000 words. You can find the picture of it on YouTube or Google. So there's one branch of the vagus nerve that runs down the left side that goes right into the spleen, right directly into the spleen from the vagus nerve. When that vagus nerve branch is directly stimulated, either with electricity, and the only way you can stimulate that branch, just so you guys know, because you're like, oh, well, I could just use a TENS unit. You can't. Don't try. The only way you can stimulate the splenic branch with electricity is with, guess what? An implanted vagus nerve stimulator. That's the only form of electrical stimulation that can accurately stimulate your spleen. So unless you're willing to go under the knife for a surgical procedure to implant a VNS device, because let's get realistic, you guys, not everything can be touched with a freaking TENS unit that costs $10 on Amazon, as much as you hope it would. It's just a lie to tell people that, and it's just inaccurate to give them false hope that that's going to, oh, just get a TENS unit. Just, you stimulate around your spleen. It's just not going to get in there. It's too deep. The only other option is going to be ultrasound specific. So yeah, the spleen is really important. When you stimulate the spleen, when the vagus nerve receptors in the spleen region are activated, it tells the macrophages to drop the production of TNF alpha, and you see global serum levels of TNF alpha floating around the body, which is bad. If it's high, dropping significantly within about 2 hours post stimulation. So that is now an approved treatment across the board for a range of severe inflammatory conditions. Very, very, very important. Like hugely important. So cool. That's why I mentioned the spleen. That's why I believe it is so important. And that's one of the reasons why vagus nerve stimulation done properly can be unbelievably helpful for people dealing with what could be very life-threatening issues with inflammation in their body. So that is why that is an ideal spot to stimulate. Okay, next question. All the doctors / nutritionists, etc., are saying the NTs are the problem due to a severe dysbiosis causing the emotions / feelings, problems, thoughts here. I'm sorry, I'm not making the connection with the NT. The NT. If a doctor and nutritionist is saying the NT, could you just expand on what the NT is? I'm going to try to Google it real quick on my end. NT. The NTs. I mean, I'm guessing it's the neurotransmitters, I think is what you're trying to say. Yeah, okay. So doctors and nutritionists are saying that the neurotransmitters are the problem due to severe dysbiosis causing the emotions / feelings, problems, thoughts here. Yes. Okay, you corrected. It is neurotransmitter. So good. So as far as so neurotransmitters, this is a very interesting question. If you look up the latest research doing like what we would consider the fact check on, this widespread over prescription of SSRIs and psychiatric medicine dealing with mental health disorders. Like if you give someone a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor pill, an antidepressant basically, the idea is that SSRI is going to boost the levels of serotonin, generally speaking, in the brain and the body, and that fixes depression. It turns out that was a model of how things worked that was created after the development of SSRIs. So the whole idea of depression being some kind of issue of too little serotonin in the brain is essentially a marketing invention by the pharmaceutical companies to sell us SSRIs. Oh, well, if you give people SSRIs and they have low serotonin, then their depression will be fixed. Now, let me ask you, if you look around the United States, knowing that like 35% on average, 1 out of 3 people walking around are on some form of an antidepressant, could you honestly tell me that, yeah, that model is definitely accurate? Fuck no. There's no way that you could actually say that there's any standard, that there's any kind of standard consensus on serotonin, neurotransmitters, dopamine, etc. Also, those things are extremely difficult to regulate. Any drug that accurately tries to affect dopamine gives you, so let's say Parkinson's, for instance. Parkinson's, there's an issue with L-DOPA, which is a dopamine precursor. The drugs that they give you are endogenously boosting L-DOPA. It may pull back some of the effects of Parkinson's, but it basically immediately kills you after about 5 years because of the way that it replaces L-DOPA. It puts artificial L-DOPA that's unstable into your brain until your brain basically just runs out of real dopamine, and then you die. So that's not very good. Anyway, somebody in a chat was like, well, dopamine is the root cause of all of these issues. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not the root cause. There are countless cases of people who have, go look at people who have vagus nerve stimulator devices implanted in their neck. Those are some of the best people to study to understand what happens when you just stimulate the vagus nerve and that's it. If you just stimulate the vagus nerve, you see people getting back their pleasure, they get back their digestion, they get back their energy, their memory, their autonomic function again. So if it was a dopamine or a serotonin issue, the VNS device does not change any of those numbers substantially at all. So how do you take someone with epilepsy, migraines, depression, who's tried, why does major depressive disorder, when psychiatric drugs fail, which they often do in a case of major depressive disorder, why is it that the thing that they run to save their butts is a vagus nerve stimulator? And then you want to tell me, oh no, the serotonin model of depression is foolproof. It's a gold standard. No, it's not. When you stop dicking around with the serotonin and you start dealing with the vagus nerve, which regulates is this not getting through, you guys? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so it's just not the case that I don't believe that. What does this link get? I want to go through you since you shared this with me. Hey, this is sold. Sorry, best, and that's the link to join. Any discount is already applied. Boom. Cool. So yeah. Cool. So anyway, I love these questions. Let's get any other questions. I think I've definitely, addressed the ones on, on YouTube. I see you have another question. Let me jump over to Facebook real quick. Hey Lori, good to see you. So Olivia, you had asked, what device do you recommend? I'm going to post this. I'm going to post the link directly to the device that I recommend in the chat here. I can't reply directly to you, unfortunately. Facebook Live just doesn't let me do that, but I'm going to post the link here, vegushub.com/phase1. Okay. That's my recommendation for you. If you guys want to get this handled, and I'm going to post this here on YouTube too, so people aren't like, oh, can you post me the link to? vegushub.com/phase1. Go there. That's the device I would recommend. That is the program I would recommend. That should clearly answer your question. Now on there is going to be links to an ultrasound, a little ultrasound specific group if you want to learn more. If you're not ready to buy anything today, you can learn more about ultrasound. There's also a document. There's a PDF you can download that's 30 pages long. That's comprehensive on the technology that we use. So don't ask me, well, what's the device? It's in there. You got to click through the stuff. And then if you click the button that says check out the program, which is the order button, that'll take you to the next page. And then you scroll down, that's got a picture of the device and a description of the actual technology that I'm talking about here. Good. So, let's see, Facebook real quick. So Olivia, I hope you are able to get that. Get you, Lori, definitely. Charlene had shared, and Charlene is in our program. She is using the device that we use in our program. She wrote, my anxiety is so much in control working with you. Education is so important. Thankful for VNS. Absolutely. Good. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that. Yeah, Charlene's story is incredible. If you know her, you followed her over the last just 2 months, I think, like less than 2 months, maybe about 2 months now of being in our phase 1 program, which is what I would recommend if you guys are, want to get this handled. Very fast results within 3 weeks, feeling just substantially better from how she was feeling before. And I do actually have a video that I posted a little bit earlier, that I host here it's a YouTube video of Charlene. So I just want to get that here in the chat too. So don't watch it now, go watch it later, but you can hear directly from her as well. Let me just grab it real quick. I have the link on my end. There we go. Boom. Okay, cool. So I'm going to post that here in the chat. Check out Charlene's story here. Cool. And that's not the only thing we have of Charlene. There's more to it, but geez, that's a great video to start with, like for sure. And then I'm also going to post that here in the chat, on YouTube as well. So yeah, you can go listen to real people. And also at that phase 1 link right there, that has specific video testimonials from real people who use that device. So if you want to learn about what's possible, definitely do that. Matt asked, do you have any recommendations for other things to utilize outside the device that would be worth doing at the same time? I do. I'm a big fan of neck mobilization and strengthening, given that, unfortunately, the way that our beautiful God up above us designed our bodies is that he unfortunately placed the vagus nerve right next to the atlas bone on both sides. So if you have any neck instability, like you're like, my posture's not great, I hunch down, I have these kinds of issues, then it's very likely that you may be compressing your vagus nerve in your neck. And I highly, highly, highly recommend, that during a normal phase of normal VNS treatment, that you do work to strengthen the muscles in your neck to support the correct posture around your vagus nerve. Because if you don't handle that, then no matter what you do, electrical, ultrasound, anything, you smack yourself on the neck if you want to, whatever the best thing that could be out there. If your vagus nerve is pinching your vagus nerve, if your vagus nerve is being pinched by an irregular neck, you are going to not even get as much of the effect as you hoped. So that's one other thing that I would recommend. Another thing I would recommend is the so there is a neurotransmitter of the vagus nerve that's very, very important. It's produced automatically all the time. All you need to do to get enough of it in your body, because your body knows exactly, the neurotransmitter acetylcholine is so underappreciated but so important. Did you know that every one of your muscles depletes and uses acetylcholine? Did you know that your entire brain apparatus that has memory depends on acetylcholine? So you typically see when you have a depletion of vagus nerve activity that you correspondingly see a decrease in memory as well. And that's because of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. So and actually this is what this light show behind me is, basically a molecular demo of what acetylcholine looks like. So it's actually pretty small. It's very important, and there's a lot of it in your body. But your body doesn't produce it naturally. You need to consume choline in your diet. I'll put that here in the chat. Choline by tartrate at the minimum is the best option. And let me put that here in the chat too. So choline by tartrate. Okay. Well, it wants to tag someone named by tartrate. That's weird. Who's naming themselves by tartrate? That's very, very interesting. Choline by tartrate is the supplement you can get for like, I don't know, $10 for like a 3-month supply. It's super affordable. You don't need to be spending a bunch of money on choline. It's very available, but you need it. Your body doesn't produce it naturally, so it's essential to get it. It's an essential B vitamin. So there are a range of things that you do need to be doing alongside any successful type of stimulation of your vagus nerve. Doing corollary, supportive, additional things with stimulating your vagus nerve can make the difference between getting results within a few days, a few weeks, if you do the right stuff together properly, or if you don't do any of that stuff, then what's going to happen is that you might be like 6 months down the line and barely getting results. So you do have to do a few of the supportive things. It's just not, again, I guess it is optional, but if you want the results that we get in our phase 1 program, that's what we cover. And all the information is there. Again, if somebody's just like, I just want to use a device, I don't want to do anything else. I'm like, I save up or, make the time or whatever the issue is. If you're going to do any of these devices, the difference, you guys don't understand the difference between one single device versus doing it within the context of a guided, like medically informed program. Because, these devices you're going to see on Facebook, these ads, these are just run-of-the-mill electrical 9-volt batteries wrapped around your neck or in a little package. These are not complex protocols. They're just like, well, stimulate for 2 minutes and just bam, hit your vagus nerve. And you do typically only see the testimonials from like, I used it for 2 weeks. It was great. You don't see 3 months later. There are no 3-month, 4-month, 5-month testimonials from a lot of these electrical devices because they stop working. If they don't stop working, then you have to spend another $500 to reorder the same one because it ran out of battery because you can't recharge them because that's how they have to do it. So the reality is like, hey, let's put the full cost up front for people to understand what you really need to do to get this handled. Anyway, the link's there, vegushub.com/phase1. Now I do take calls. If you do want to do a call, we'll do a call with you. So I'm going to put that here for those who want to schedule a 10-minute call. Please use this link. Now, what can you expect on that call? Well, you'll get to talk to me, or you'll get to talk to my assistant. Both of us are in biotechnology. We both know what we're talking about. Don't be disappointed. Be like, I'm not getting to talk to Sterling right now. It's like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You'll be fine. So anyway, yeah, so cool. I'm going to put the link here in YouTube as well. I don't expect a lot of YouTube people to do that, but, question from Matt. Great question. Is choline by tartrate the same thing as phosphatidylcholine? No. So choline is choline plus a salt that helps make it stable at room temperature and can be stored for a long time. So if you buy choline by tartrate, there's almost no risk that it's expired or that it's broken down. You can be certain that that's going to be very shelf stable, choline by tartrate. Phosphatidylcholine has to be shipped in a bottle that's liquid, that's UV sensitive, in a brown bottle. It has to be refrigerated constantly. Otherwise, it does come at risk of, like, it's kind of like an oil, but it's a more sensitive oil. So it can't be heated up. Otherwise, it kind of degrades in quality. So there are certain ways to use phosphatidylcholine. I like phosphatidylcholine. I think Body Bio PC has some great phosphatidylcholine available in pill form. So they're not the same. They are similar. Either one would be preferred to none of the above. Like, again, you have to have some form of it. And typically what happens when people get a kind of an autoimmune condition where they become highly allergic or inflammatory reactive to lots of food, they stop eating a lot of the food that contains choline in high amounts, which are in a lot of cruciferous vegetables, which contains fiber, which then can irritate your gut if you're having a condition like that. That contains a lot of choline, but sorry, too bad. None for you. Then we also look at eggs and meat. Whereas if you have issues with consuming meat and dairy products, then you're also cutting yourself off from high sources of choline. Very common, very, very common. And also in nuts. It's in some nuts in higher quantities, but not very much. I mean, you have to be eating gobs of nuts. And if you have a reactive digestive system, nuts also become reactive. So the things that contain the most choline in a reactive body become really difficult to eat and to consume. So that's where you get a lot of problems there. So yeah, should you take a supplement? I think basically everybody should be taking some kind of a supplement here, like for sure. It looks like the link I posted didn't paste for some reason. I'm going to get that here in the chat here real quick. I don't know why. YouTube does not do well with the links, apparently. Boom. Okay, there's the link that you can click. Okay, cool. So good. What else? Yeah, so they are similar, but they're a little bit different. You should be taking one or whatever, right? I think I saw one. What was it? Somebody asked a question in the chat or asked about memory. Donnie, let's see. Donnie, can you clarify your question about memory? I might have asked that. I might have answered that already on video. Yeah, so while I wait for that clarification to come in, good. Yep. Lori, you get it. Definitely. So you should be taking something if you're not taking anything. Good. And then, I think to again talk about memory, the system that underpins the system and neurotransmitter that underpins memory is the cholinergic system. Go look it up. You can fact check me in real time. If you have a phone or a laptop nearby or a computer, go like neurotransmitter of memory. You'll find that it's the cholinergic memory system. If you're depleted in choline or acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter, you typically lose memory. Guess what? The biggest, when acetylcholine is gone in your body, guess what happens? You lose memory, and you can develop, in some cases, Alzheimer's, dementia. These are the biggest pathogenesis forms of memory loss. And they all have to do with the loss of acetylcholine in your body. So it's not good. It's really, really, really not good. Okay, so I do want to answer this question for Donnie here. I was not on the entire call. I was just wondering if the vagus nerve and memory have a connection to stimulate the vagus nerve. Can you bring back short-term and long-term memory, make a memory better? You can bring back short-term memory. You can bring back long-term memory. You can have more emotional resonance with a past memory. So yeah, the answer to your question, I think what you're really getting is I would say yes, definitely. This is definitely something in your case that you should definitely get. So we'll continue that conversation further after this call. But yeah, so super stoked to, yes, I did see that. Thank you so much for that, Matt. And then, yeah, you wrote, thanks for putting on the webinar. I'm excited to start the program next week when I get the device. Me too. Getting shipped out there. Already in the mail. I'll get you a tracking code for that. But yeah, so for any of those that are curious to know more about how the vagus nerve can help you, I highly encourage you to go to that page that I posted. That would be vegushub.com/phase1. All the links are in there. There's the thing that says download workbook now. That's the workbook that you should download. Discover the power of vagus nerve stimulation. Click here to get started. And then there's testimonial videos you can click on. Just click around that page. That page is fantastic. And there's a beautiful picture of me with a big, strong neck on that video. So I'll post that again here. Just lastly here on YouTube, go there. And then lastly, again, one last thing in Facebook. So you can, oh gosh. Phase 1, boom. Okay. And then I'll take one last question before we hop off. But for Lori, can you take the pure PC phosphatidylcholine into pills, have flaxseed oil in it, and I am allergic? Yeah, you can definitely take the pure PC, definitely. That doesn't have flaxseed in it at all. So yeah, you could take that, definitely. Go for it. It'll get more expensive, I believe, if you're only taking pure PC, but again, remember with the full script account we provide to all active clients, you get 35% off on all supplements. So, Laura, you may get a great deal off of Body Bio or, get another bottle of Pure PC. You'll save a ton of money doing that. 35% off is not anything to sniff at. 35% off retail price on supplements through our full script account. That's huge. That's huge. That's provided by default from day one. So there's a lot you can do. How much do I suggest? Just follow what the bottle specifically says because it's dosed out for what you need on a daily basis. That's my recommendation. Almost always I'm going to recommend follow what the bottle says unless I otherwise tell you. Okay? All right, cool. That was fantastic. I'm going to, yes, correct, Matt. Good. All right, well, I'm going to end it here on YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. So thanks, guys, on YouTube. I look forward to continuing the conversation, and we'll see you guys soon. And then same thing for Facebook. Thank you guys